Welcome to today's Daily Thought, and this week we're looking at the key word better in the letter to the Hebrews. Written to Jewish Christians, the writer's at pains to emphasise the superiority of Jesus over the traditions and rituals that they would have known as Jews. And today we think of Jesus as the better high priest, and for this we look to the end of chapter 7. The function of the high priest within the Jewish faith was to represent men and women before a holy God, to offer up sacrifices that would atone for their sins so that people could draw near and have access to God. Chapter 7 talks of how we have a better hope, verse 19, how we have a guarantor of a better covenant, verse 22. And why is that? Because we have a better high priest. Let me read this passage, verses 23 to 28. Now there have been many of those priests, since death prevented them from continuing in office, but because Jesus lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. Therefore he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Such a high priest truly meets our need, one who is holy, blameless, pure, set apart from sinners, exalted above the heavens. Unlike the other high priests, he does not need to offer sacrifices day after day, first for his own sins and then for the sins of the people. He sacrificed for their sins once for all when he offered himself. For the law appoints as high priests men in all their weakness, but the oath which came after the law appointed the Son who has been made perfect forever. And I want you to notice three main contrasts that are made between Jesus and these high priests, or these human priests. First of all, there were many high priests because they were naturally human, and so they were mortal. That meant there was a long line of successive priests because they kept dying. But with Jesus, we have only one priest that we need to look to. That is because he is undying and he is eternal. He exercises his priesthood by the power of an indestructible life, verse 16. And so verse 24, because Jesus lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. And we could say that there are in fact two contrasts going on here. The Jewish priests were mortal and many, whereas Jesus is immortal and so can stand as the only one needed. Secondly, the Jewish priesthood were sinners themselves, who had to offer up sacrifices for their own sins as well as for the sins of the people. But Jesus, according to verse 26, is one who is holy, blameless, pure, set apart from sinners, exalted above the heavens. And then thirdly, the Jewish priests had repeatedly to offer sacrifices day after day. It was this continual requirement, an incessant need. But Jesus, by contrast, made one sacrifice that was all sufficient to deal with sins forever. Why was that? That was because Jesus offered a better sacrifice. But that's tomorrow's daily thought. This, for today, it's enough for us to be glad about this truth, that as sinful men and women who stand guilty before a holy God, we need someone to intercede for us. We need someone to plead our cause. For so long, God's people had to depend on sinful men like themselves, many of them, serving for a while and then dying. But now, says Hebrews, we need look only to one mediator, one who is without sin and who now lives forever. Jesus, the one who is so much better. Amen.